As the world awaits the US decision on striking Iran, one target is drawing particular focus: Iran's Fordo nuclear fuel enrichment plant. While other uranium enrichment plants within Iran do have sections that have been built underground, and while most such other plants suffered some damage, Fordo plant is different. It's tunneled into a mountain, kind of like the US NORAD command center. Israeli officials have repeatedly stated that their air force cannot reach the centrifuges inside Fordo facility and have urged US military intervention. Some details about the plant are known. It has multiple tunnel entrances, with construction dating back to at least 2004. Uranium enrichment began in 2011, though additional features may have been added since. There are several ways to attempt neutralization of Fordo. One is using nuclear penetrator bombs. Now retired US W-56 warhead detonation at 1.2 megatons could collapse underground cavities up to 300 meters deep, despite the warhead itself not penetrating nearly that far. Today the US could use other bombs if it wanted to, as it has the means. Israel may possess smaller warheads, 100 to a few hundred kilotons, which could likely also do the job, especially if used in multiples. However, deploying a nuclear weapon in anger for the first time in 80 years would set a dangerous precedent. Political fallout would be immense, and frankly it would likely only make other countries get nuke weapons of their own. The whole world would be destabilized. Israel can't reach the enrichment hole inside the mountain on its own. Its F-15s can carry the big GBU-72 penetrator bomb, but even that cannot pierce more than 7 to 8 meters of reinforced concrete. Fordo is tunneled into hardened rock, comparable to concrete. As for hitting the same place many times and effectively drilling into the mountain, hits into concrete or rock either create narrow cavities or collapse the whole area into rubble, making repeated precision hits infeasible. Current technology lacks the precision needed to hit the exact same spot multiple times in a row. Even if a cavity forms, rubble will likely refill it. So while drilling seems plausible in theory, in practice, the said bomb is too weak. Israel could temporarily disable the facility by repeatedly bombing peripheral infrastructure, tunnel entrances, ventilation openings, power facilities, but these are only stopgap measures. Sustaining such attacks monthly is costly, but militarily feasible, though it is politically questionable. Would future Israeli governments commit to potentially a decade-long bombing campaign? Another option would be air-inserted troops. Small sabotage teams wouldn't suffice. Even pre-war, Fordo was heavily guarded. It's likely to be protected by a brigade or more now that a wider war is looming. Without US involvement, Iran could easily maintain a large force there. A massive airborne assault might be theoretically possible, though certainly extreme and near suicidal. It would require thousands or tens of thousands of troops, with Allied air power suppressing nearby Iranian forces and their reinforcements. Iranian air defenses have already been degraded, so further US involvement could neutralize remaining threats. The operation would be technically doable, but would likely result in heavy casualties, and many captured if extraction is delayed or fails. Extraction would be the most dangerous phase. But so far the US hasn't shown willingness to launch a land invasion, which is frankly as implausible as using nuclear weapons on Iran. Anyway, all those ideas verge on incredible and almost impossible. Without the US support, the air assault idea would likely not work, and with the US, there's something cleaner and more effective to be used instead. If and when the US gets involved, it will surely use its bombers to deliver its massive conventional bomb penetrators. Preliminary plans for the Fordo plant, now over 20 years old, leaked years ago. In 2018, Israel claimed to have obtained the old plans, showing a general layout of the tunnels and enrichment hall. Assuming the layout hasn't changed significantly, it's likely the uranium centrifuges, key targets, are housed in a 250-meter-long tunnel. Overlaying the plan on satellite imagery suggests the enrichment hall sits roughly beneath the mountain's ridge. The distance between the tunnel entrance and the enrichment hole appears to be around 240 meters. Topographic data shows the ridge is about 955 meters above sea level, while tunnel entrances average around 905 meters. The terrain slopes gently near the entrances, steepening around 150 meters from the ridge. Crucially, side profile analysis of the mountain reveals that if the enrichment hole sits at the same elevation as the entrance, it is shielded by about 47 to 48 meters of rock when approached from two narrow angles, 25 degrees off vertical. A direct vertical or 30 degrees off-axis strike would face around 50 meters of rock. A bomb dropped from a subsonic B-2 at high altitude would likely approach almost vertically. On paper, the US MOP Massive Ordnance Penetrator sounds formidable. It weighs over 12 tons, or 27,000 pounds, and 2 can be carried by a B-2 bomber. Given the vastly degraded state of Iranian air defenses, the US could likely perform as many B-2 missions as needed. The bomb would need to be dropped from 10 or so kilometers to achieve its terminal velocity, which in turn is defined by its weight and drag being a product of its shape and size. Even so, most modern penetrator bombs are barely supersonic at impact. In World War II, the British Disney bomb, a 2-ton highly streamlined munition with a rocket motor, reached about 440 meters per second, or just under Mach 1.3, from its 6-kilometer drop altitude. The 5-ton Tallboy, without a rocket, managed just under Mach 1 from the same altitude. Neither the GBU-72 nor the larger GBU-57 have rocket assist, though they are released from twice the altitude, giving them more time to accelerate. Both likely reach between Mach 1 and Mach 1.5. The GBU-57 is 2.5 times denser but less streamlined, and with greater cross-sectional area than the GBU-72, so it's not likely to be much faster. Velocity is more critical than weight for penetration, but even increasing velocity by 50% and weight by 6 times doesn't yield 10 times the penetration. It's going to result in 6 times the increase in force, but that force is spread over a somewhat larger impact area, somewhat reducing effectiveness. So even if the massive GBU-57 is 50% faster, which is doubtful, its penetration will likely be just 3 to 5 times that of GBU-72. This aligns with early DoD data and known test results. GBU-72 modestly improves on the GBU-28, which has penetrated over 5 meters of reinforced concrete, with one alleged test suggesting over 6.5 meters. It also went through 30 meters of soil, but that's something else entirely. Soil penetration figures are often misrepresented as concrete penetration performance, leading to misleading claims. This old DoD-issued drawing compares several penetrator weapons. It shows the BLU-109 warhead generally credited with penetrating up to 2 meters of reinforced concrete. Being a warhead rather than a bomb, it's not directly comparable to others in the drawing. The GBU-28 bomb is shown to penetrate about 2.5 times more than the BLU-109, confirming test data suggesting at least 5 meters of concrete penetration. The Massive Ordnance Penetrator, GBU-57, is indicated at 20 times the BLU-109's penetration. That would be roughly 40 meters. However, if using the lower BLU-109 value, it could be closer to 24 meters. Curiously, the drawing lists a value in feet near the GBU-57, showing 60 feet, possibly 62 feet along the bomb's impact angle, which translates to about 18 to 19 meters. Taken all together, the suggested figures represent the real plausible penetration depths for the US most capable bunker buster, ranging from 18 meters, plausible, to 20-something meters, likely, to theoretically 40 meters, which is unlikely. As we have shown, widely cited claims of 200 feet or 60 meters of reinforced concrete penetration, sometimes repeated by reputable news sources, are almost certainly incorrect. These likely stem from confusion, someone mistaking feet for meters, or misapplying the Air Force's 200 feet underground penetration figure, which doesn't come with the material qualifier. With that said, 20 or 30 meters of penetration, let alone 40, is a huge deal. Returning to the side view of the Fordo facility, the tunnel is shown sloping downward. While not confirmed, it's logical, as many tunnels are dug at an angle. Why not bury the facility a bit deeper? The drawing assumes a shallow 8% slope, just above typical highway max, so heavy trucks could manage it. Realistically, Iranians might have dug steeper, perhaps up to 12%. That could add about 29 meters of protection beyond the tunnel entrance level, making total rock cover close to 80 meters thick. This would put the enrichment hole out of reach even for the GBU-57. However, in theory, repeated hits on the same spot could drill into the mountain. The GBU-57's greater penetration lessens but does not eliminate drilling issues previously discussed. Several bombs hitting the same spot would in reality require several times the number of bombs due to bomb guidance not being perfect. Then a few bombs extra might be needed to fight through the rock rubble. Eventually, a hit might cause a part of the hole to collapse. However, the hole is likely 250 meters long and probably divided by blast doors, so a single penetration, requiring a dozen bombs, would only neutralize part of the facility. The process might need repeating at different locations alongside the mountain ridge, potentially needing several dozen bombs. Publicly, GBU-57 stockpile info is limited. In 2011, when the bomb entered service, the US Air Force had 16 bombs, with at least 8 more ordered. It's plausible they have acquired about half a dozen to a dozen every year since. Anything under 100 would be unlikely for the current US inventory. The question is whether the US would spend a quarter or third of its stock on Iran and Fordo, especially with China looming. The US could certainly destroy Fordo, but it would require significant effort and expense. And remember, bINKOV may talk about war, but only real peace can bring us all together.